All right, a little cold to work in the garage today, so I'm bringing some stuff in. This right here is the dash console for the 1977 MGB. And you know, it's an older car, and it's had some miles on it. And during the disassembly, there were some cracks that developed or were actually revealed. You can see this one here goes pretty far, goes down into there. See, it goes really down. This particular unit, if you want to just replace this outright and have a new one, it's $85. I think that this has enough structure. Got a crack down here on this side here too, but I think that we can save some money and revitalize this one here using a product called Bondic. Bondic is a ultraviolet activated plastic filler. It's not glue, but it will do the job in this case. The idea here being that we don't want to see a patch. We want this to be as close to invisible as we can get it. So if we can get it to close up real nice and then secure that, you won't even see it from the other side. So I'm going to try to save $85 here today. First thing when you're doing this is disassembly. To get it out of the car, it's really easy. There's just 4 holes, right? And you just pull those screws, the whole thing comes out. There's some controls that go in here. So the heater and the airflow controls, and then the cigarette lighter. Now, I'm going to show you how to disassemble those from the back side. Because if you can take it out the way it's intended, then you won't make any more damage while you're disassembling it. There's also a couple of idiot lights that go right in here. I'll show you the easy way to take those out. So first things first, let's show you how everything comes off. Okay, so first thing here, these little idiot lights, they have a little clip on the back. You can see the clip uses little forky things that go into the plastic, so it goes in one direction and only one direction. And the easy way for getting those out is you just take a pair of needle nose pliers, you get up underneath there, and you twist it. Oops, sorry. So you get a little needle nose pliers, and you get up underneath there, and you just twist it back. I'm going to be really careful with that. First of all, it's very malleable. It's just copper. And the other thing is that this plastic is old and very brittle. So when you get those, you only have to twist half of them back. It'll make room, and then you can just wiggle this off, and the whole thing falls through. Just like everything else, you have a sandwich. You have 2 pieces that are coming together and squishing against the opening. And so that same concept works with these. They have these little screws on them, or little nuts on the end of the screws that you can unscrew with just a standard screwdriver. They're not torqued on. It's just 3 screw points with a squash washer, a split washer, and you can take those off with a screwdriver and they fall right through. Here's a good example of what falls through. This is the face. We'll clean this up really nice before we put it back in. Get all this crud off of there, sand them up, seal it so that it looks brand new. And these are in good shape. The last thing, or the hard part with things that might seem a little less obvious, is this cigarette lighter. So on the cigarette lighter, when you're looking at it, it only has, from the front side, it just has this little bezel, this little plastic bezel. And from the back side, you can see there's a screw in the middle. Well, that screw has a little tiny nut on it, and I've already taken it off. This is this little brass nut. So you don't have to worry about rust because it's going to be brass, and that'll come right off. So when they take that nut off, then this centerpiece comes out. This centerpiece is what is squishing this back piece. So the back piece sets on here, and then the flange from this front piece squeezes up in there, and it holds the 2 of them together. So that's how you take that out. Just that little tiny nut that's in there. I didn't even use a wrench. I just used a pair of needle nose pliers, and it came right off. You just untwist it and it comes right off. Now, the cigarette lighter in this car, as you can see in there, it's got a lot of rust. I'm not going to treat that rust because we're not putting a cigarette lighter back in there. There's plenty of kits online where you can buy a, in our case, we're going to put a USB charger. It takes the same wattage, you put it on the same circuit, and it has the same fuses, so you don't even have to change any wire or add any wires. But you just don't put a cigarette lighter on there. You put a USB. And the reason why we're doing that is when we put this back in, instead of putting a radio in, we're going to put a shelf in here. There's a couple of online resources where you can buy aftermarket shelf. So that way, when you're driving, you just put your phone in there. You have a little tiny cable that comes out here to charge it for a USB charger. As far as speakers go, we're just going to run Bluetooth speakers. That way you don't have to run a bunch of wire through the car. You can take them out if you want and make them more secure. If you ever park the car, you can pull them out. So that's our plan, is a shelf for cell phones, a charger right here. We're going to put a USB charger in here. So let's move on to the next thing. First thing, when you're going to put this Bondic on there, is you got to wash it. You can see there's a lot of dust on here. Anytime that you're trying to get two things to adhere to each other, you want to make sure that there's no dust or dirt. So I'm going to go ahead and clean this, and we'll move on to the next step. All right, quick little pro tip here. So after you've cleaned it with a sponge and water or whatever, go over it with Windex. Windex will act just like WD-40, and it will displace any water that got into crack. And Windex evaporates very quickly. Okay, so the next step here, after you got it nice and clean and dry, there's no foreign debris in there. You can see this crack goes from here all the way up to here, and it flops and wobbles around. We're going to mate that up together. See how shiny that is? The Bondic won't stick to that. Like I said, Bondic is not a glue, it's a plastic filler. And so what we want to do to make it so we can use this is we want to rough it up. So I got here a little piece of 40 grit sandpaper, and we're gonna rough up this edge right here with the 40 grit, and then it'll be ready for the Bondic. Just to review, the traditional method for welding plastic is to set the plastic in place and then put a heated staple, a little piece of metal, across the join, when the staple gets into it, it melts the plastic. That's the traditional method of doing that. It's a bit dated. It's kind of Frankenstein. This you'll see this Bondic. It's clear when it's done, and it doesn't create any sort of rust surface that having a piece of metal dropped into your plastic would do. So let's move on, and I'll go ahead and sand these up, and then we'll continue. Okay, so here you can see I've sanded it rough all along the entire path. We're not going to put Bondic all the way out to the edges of that sand mark, but we're definitely going to put some in there because we're going to create little plastic staples, if you will, that are going to hold that together. Now, while I was washing it, I noticed some additional defects. Here's a crack right here across the top. I didn't see that initially, but when I was washing, I found that. Also, there's a little chip taken out right here. So that's one of the other things about Bondic is it is a plastic filler. So we're going to put a piece of tape on the outside of this, and we're going to go ahead and fill that. And then at a later date, we'll come back with some touch-up paint and paint that so it matches nice and black, and you'd never know the difference. All right, Bondic is it's a two-part process. First of all, you put the glue on. This is the material right here. It comes out of these little applicators. It gives you a really nice, I don't know if I can get a good focus on this, a really nice sharp point, so you have really good control over where you're putting it. then once you get it where you like it, you hit it with this little UV light. You can see just a little UV light. After about 4 seconds with the UV, it becomes as hard as plastic. So unlike any other glues that you might want to put on there and you have to hold it in place or tape it or it'll seep up, you have complete control. You can do it in little pieces and then just activate the parts that you want and then go to the next section. Now, the thing to notice on this is UV light, right? Don't do this outside. You want to do it in the house. You can do it where it's lit, but don't do it directly in the sunlight because obviously the minute that you put it out there, the sunlight will activate it and it will become instantly hard. So in order to give you some room to work and some time to get it where you like it, in this case, we're going to wiggle this and get it to where it's nice and closed, and then I'm just going to hit it with the light, and then it'll instantly harden, and then I can move to the next section and do the same thing. So I'm going to go ahead and apply some on here, and then we'll activate it. It's hard to do with one hand, so bear with me. You can see at the very top up here where it flops the most, I've go ahead and put a small weld spot of the Bondic on the back side. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold it up. I'm going to get it in the position that I want it to be in. Put it all the way I like it. And I'm going to hold it in position and just hit it with that light real quick. Right like that. I'm going to get this just the way I want it. Get it so that the crack is all oriented nice. Got a little paper towel here so I can get it off the edge. And boom. About 4 seconds. Anything that went through the crack is going to get activated this way. That's it. You can see that's nice and tight. All I have to do is go back through and get the rest of these and go a little bit at a time to get it all matched up, and we'll have a nice seamless seal. Okay, so here you can see I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 little staples, if you will, little stitches. In the backside. These are structural, and it's intended to make it all mate back up correctly. And what I'm going to do next here is I've put a small bead on the outside like this, and I'm going to take a paper towel. See, it's just goo. I'm going to take a paper towel and just wipe this off so that you wouldn't even know it was there. And what's going to happen is it's going to get into the crack, and then I'm going to shoot some light in there so you can't even tell that it was there. I'm going to shoot some light in there, and it will activate this side, and it will be all filled up. Make it so that it gets in there nice and deep. Here we go. Okay. So once you've given it a thing, see, it doesn't wobble anymore. It's all solid, not a problem. And if you look underneath, see, aside from just those initial structural tacks that I put in there, I went ahead and put a little zigzag pattern across the actual joint itself. And so this is just as hard as regular plastic, and it's a pretty good fit. It's a seal that only you and I would know about. So, sitting in place, you'd never even know there was a crack. Well, maybe a little bit, but, there you go. I got to repeat that for the other side, and I'll show you how to fill this. And on my next thing, I'll go ahead and do the filling. All right, so you can see I've done right here is I've taken a piece of tape and set it across the edge. It creates a boundary, and went ahead and threw some Bondic in there. I'm going to go ahead and activate this. And you see I've taken my finger and just made the Bondic go beyond the border just a little bit. that will give it something to bond to. Again, Bondic is a filler. It's not glue. And so I'll give this quick 4 seconds here. You can see that the tape has a little bulge in it, and that's okay, because once we're done with this, we're going to sand it to the right shape, and then I'm gonna paint it so that it matches. We have some little touch-up paint that we're going to put on there, and you'll never know that it was anything. The other thing about Bondic that you'll notice is, unlike other glues or solvent-based fillers, it doesn't shrink when it sets. So when you put it into a shape, that's the shape that it is going to be. And so it doesn't, because nothing gets volatilized off, nothing evaporates, no thinner or any other kind of solvent is evaporating away. It doesn't change its shape. It doesn't shrink, which is a great thing, especially when you're doing filling like this, because you don't want to have to do it a couple times. You want to do it once. And I'm going to change the direction to make sure that the light gets all the way down in there. And it's supposed to get 4 seconds. When you get it 4 seconds, give it a little extra, because I know it's going pretty deep. But because it's clear, it'll go all the way through. You don't have to worry about it making little bubbles that don't set. All right, that's probably 4 seconds. All right, so I've gone ahead and pulled the tape off. You can see it's perfectly shaped. The only thing it has is it's clear versus dark. You get a good focus on that. My hand in here. And you can't even tell. I mean, we throw a little bit of color on that and it will be a perfect match. So there you go. A quick example of using it to fill a gap, and a good example of using it to patch a stitch work, to make a patch.